with the 4-day work week. Well, if you're wondering what that is, well, it's one of the biggest pilot projects that's happening right now. Started this week, and in the United Kingdom, essentially, we're talking about 70 companies who are partaking in this pilot project for the 6 months. Involves 3,300 workers. Essentially, what they've decided to do is go to work for 4 days a week without having to increase their hours. Now, that's something that we've seen in the public sector for quite some time, where they would increase the number of hours they would go to work, the 4 days that they're there, to be able to have the 5th work week off, to have a total of 3 days off. Essentially, we've seen that in government departments where if they started from 9 to 5, well, essentially they would get to work from perhaps 8 to 6 to be able to allot those extra 8 hours in those 4 days to make up for the 5th day on a Friday, not to go to work, and then to be able to take it off. Therefore, no amount of hours are missed. But what's being piloted right now is not to increase the hours of work in those 4 days to make up for the 5th day of the work week. So essentially getting 100% pay for 80% of the work. And you'll be surprised that companies that have already tried it and are in the process have found it to be quite successful. Well, here's the reason. Well, essentially the program right now, which is with 70 companies, over 3,300 employees, that is doing the pilot project. It's run by a non-for-profit called 4-Day Week Global Autonomy and Think Tank and 4-Day Week UK campaign. They've partnered with Cambridge University and Oxford University and Boston College to be able to see, and researchers are going to be tracking these 3,300 employees to see how productive they're being, how they feel emotionally, what is their output, and in terms of how they feel about their work-life balance. This has come to mind since the pandemic, with people working from home and not really having a work-life balance, where the hours of work and personal time have become blurred. Essentially, working from home, where you would go to the office and to start working when you get there, and then maybe perhaps leave work behind when you leave the office. Well, those lines were blurred working from home, where essentially if you're working 8 hours in the office, you could potentially be working 12 hours at home and replying to emails and continuing your work if you're working right in your living room or your kitchen or your bedroom. Essentially, this came about to make sure that people are able to take some time off. And in the previous studies that have taken place for this 4-day work week, essentially it shows that when people come back to work, they're more refreshed, more energized, and which causes more productivity. And more productivity could essentially mean increase in revenues, which is what I'm going to cover with one Toronto company that saw that to be the case. Essentially, a company called Pressure Drop Brewery. It's an independent brewery in London. The brand manager, Sienna O'Rourke, said that when they started this, their goal was to improve the mental health and the well-being of their employees. And here's a statement from them. The pandemic has made us think a great deal about work and how people organize their lives. We're doing this to improve the lives of our staff and be part of a progressive change in the world. And until now, it was only Iceland who had done this biggest project, pilot project for shortening the work week, which was between 2015 and 2019, with 2,500 public sector workers. And in those two large trials, it found that there was no drop in productivity and a dramatic increase in the well-being, emotional well-being of the employees, of the government workers. Now, there are other countries who are looking to do this when it comes to their public sector, such as Spain and Scotland. They'll start their 4-day work week pilot project later this year, and they'll be tracking the employees to see how well they do. Now, when it comes to the brewery in the UK, they found that in a short period of time, they found their employees to be more focused, saying that so far it's become very natural, and the people that have been there for quite some time feel more confident to do their work. They know that they have a limited amount of time at work, so they make best use of every minute they have there in those 4 days to give it their best, and also an appreciation for their employer who is shortening the work week to make sure that they're able to output the quality of work. And when it comes to in Toronto, well, a company called Leadership Agency, it's a recruitment company here in Toronto. Well, they started this 4-day work week October of 2020. So the pandemic started, well, with lockdowns around March of 2020. So later that year, they decided to do this for the mental well-being of their employees in the workplace. And they found that the founder went on record to say, our productivity increased by about 200%. Our revenue has more than doubled. And we expanded into the UK 6 months after launching a 4-day work week. This is Jamie Savage, the founder of the Leadership Agency. She also goes to say that it's been very successful. It's not something we're going to be taking away. We put it in writing, and we're never going to go back to a 5-day work week. And Savage said that the 4-day work week what it did was they didn't increase the number of hours in those 4 days. Essentially, if you know, earlier this week on Monday, we talked about the legislation here in Ontario that allows workers to disengage after work hours and not receive correspondence from their employer, whether it's via text message, email, a video chat, not to be able to work after hours. This is something that Ontario has put into place. It became effective as of June 2nd, so just earlier this month, and they've tabled their legislation in the last term with the PC-led government here in Ontario. Ontario is the first province to table such a legislation and to have this be effective law, where an employee has the right to disengage after work hours. So you tell us if you decide to try the 4-day work week and how well it works for you, as we're going to know the results in about the 6-month time frame in the UK with the 70 companies that are partaking in it.